for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Emily.
And we're passionate about holistic wellness that real people with real lives can achieve.
We see you out there striving for perfection, but we want you to know that good enough can be good enough.
Before we get started, everything we talk about in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, medication, or supplements. You're listening to episode 29, DIY Wellness. In this episode, we are going to chat about ways to DIY wellness.
So, Kayla, what have you been nerding out about?
So this week, my homemade glycerite finally finished, I don't know the right word, brewing?
Steeping?
Yeah. So glycerite is when you steep herbs in glycerin, so vegetable glycerin, and you cut it with water. I'll link the page where I learned how to make it in the show notes. That way
please.
you also can learn. But I chose to go with a glycerite over a tincture because glycerites are sweet and they aren't like if you've ever had a tincture, you know how much they like burn.
They are nasty.
Yeah, and they taste gross. So I was like, I'm going to do this glycerite because I actually had a glycerite from somebody else. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I ever do this? So I did a custom blend for myself based on a quiz that I did, which I'll also link that in the show notes. But this kind of like helped me see the potential root cause of some of my fertility issues and some of the herbs they recommended for remedying that issue were red raspberry leaf, nettle leaf, and dandelion. And so I took all three of those and made a glycerite with them, and I've been taking it twice a day, and obviously I haven't seen any benefits from it yet, but it was really fun to make, and it was really simple to make. Like, you do have to buy the vegetable glycerin, which I'll link the vegetable glycerin I got because you can get lots of different ones, and I'm pretty picky about the kind of vegetable fat that I use, and so this one was coconut based, which I was happy with, and so you do have to buy that, so that's kind of a barrier to entry, I guess. It's not like just stuff you usually have on hand. But it was pretty cost effective, and it's going to last me a long time. Like, I used very little of this bottle, and since you cut it with some water, like, it lasts even longer. So I'm looking forward to making some more glycerites in the future, and I had a lot of fun learning about the herbs, learning about glycerin and glycerites, and now I'm going to have a lot of fun seeing what it does to help with my body, support my body.
That's so cool.
What about you, Emily?
So my cool thing that I've nerded out about this week is this is probably, for some people, this might seem like a very rudimentary and not that interesting. To me, it's been a total game changer this week. I need to do this because my brain is going 5,000 directions at the same time, both because of all the things I'm doing and also I think it's just wired to do that. And I have tried all kinds of different methods, and before I have always kind of used other people's methods and tried to kind of fit myself into like whatever they thought was the most productive thing to do. And I decided to approach it a little differently this time, using a few people for inspiration. So I broke my day up into what was more natural to me. So I had a before school list, a school list, an after school list, and then like I would make notes for like kids' chores that I wanted to make sure got done or that sort of thing. And then I'd also note at the bottom what we were having for dinner. So that was always on my mind, thinking like, oh yeah, I got to soak rice. I got to, do these things. It changed my week, breaking up my list into a way that worked for me instead of like what works for other people. I know that's revolutionary, but
I mean, like, sometimes we just need that breakthrough, though, of
Yeah.
like, oh, like, I don't have to do this the way everyone else does this. It's like the meal plans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this is how your brain is meant to work, is honestly, it thinks of new ways.
Yeah, it's innovative. That's how we're designed. And something that I think, though, could help everybody that I do want to talk about is having a good pen that you love. And also, I took a notebook that, like, I didn't know what I was going to do with it because it was just so nice and I liked it. It's nice, like, heavy paper spiral bound. And that's what I've been making to-do lists on. And part of me feels like, oh, that feels like such a waste. But the other part of me is like, no, because I'm purposeful about where I put it. It's special to me. I know where it's at. I'm careful with it. My kids see it and don't just like draw on it or like throw it somewhere because they can see like, oh, this is a nice notebook. It must be important.
And letting it sit empty is a waste.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
I'm proud of you for using your notebook. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but like everyone knows how intimidating it can be to get a brand new notebook and be like, well, now I got to fill it with the right thing.
Yes. Is this a universal thing? I have so much decision fatigue, anxiety over putting the correct thing in the correct notebook. Because what if you, like, it's so nice. What if you put the wrong thing and then you ruin the whole notebook?
Yes, I get it.
Is this normal? Can you let us know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's normal, but I definitely experienced the same thing.
Well, we can be weird together. That's fine, too. What else is new?
Yes.
Hey there, Goopers. Yeah, Goopers. You know, you guys who listen to the Good Enough Wellness podcast, that's your name now. Get used to it. Are you craving a healthier, more balanced life, but you're not sure where to start? Or maybe you've tried all the tips and tricks that seem impossible to keep up with because, well, you've got a real life. Sound familiar? Here's some good news. We've got something just for you. Our free Patreon community is all about holistic wellness that works for real people just like you. Whether you're juggling a busy schedule, navigating health challenges, or just curious about improving your digestion, sleep, or energy levels, we're here to help you thrive without the overwhelm. Inside, you'll find show notes, downloads, worksheets, and exclusive recordings to help you get started. Plus, it's not just about advice, it's about connection. You'll join a supportive group of people on the same journey, cheering each other on and sharing ideas that actually work. The best part? It's totally free to join. So why not take the first step today? Head over to patreon.com/goodenoughwellnesspodcast and join the community where wellness meets real life. Let's grow together. You've got this. You guys know we are DIY girlies. We love a DIY project. When it comes to food and health, I don't know that we're really painters or anything, so don't come here for that. But we do love to get into the mechanics of why and how things work. So we're big on the DIY stuff. And we have this whole list of ways to DIY your wellness. And DIY can be a great way to save money, to understand how and why things work. So sometimes it's for the quality. There's just all reasons why you might DIY. But I know our NTP here has a few reasons why maybe you shouldn't DIY. So she's going to throw a wet blanket on things real quick, and then we're going to bring it back.
I don't like to think of it as a wet blanket, but there are definitely times when you can DIY, and then there are times when you should seek help. And I don't want anyone to feel like just because we're releasing this episode about DIY wellness that you can't seek help. You have my full permission to seek help, even if you are capable of doing these DIY things. Times that you definitely should seek help is if like you're dealing with an active flare on something. Like there are things that you can do for sure at home, but I highly recommend getting some professional advice or opinions before trying things, because depending on what you have, you could be making it worse with a blanket statement DIY this for dry skin. Like if your dry skin is from something very particular, you might hurt yourself doing something DIY. If you have a certain gut disorder and you hear, oh, this is a way to DIY a gut supplement or something for my gut, you might further injure your gut doing something DIY. So it never hurts to reach out and ask, and I can be that person for you, and I can direct you to someone if I don't know if I don't know what's going on. Like if it's something beyond my scope, I can say, yeah, I think you need to seek help, and this is who I would go to. And and like you can access me through our Patreon, our Instagram, our Facebook. You can find me at Kayla King Wellness on Instagram and DM me there. Find my email, like whatever it takes. I don't want anyone to feel like you can't reach out just because you're not my client, quote unquote. I want you to get help. I care about you, and I don't want to see you suffer. So, these are some DIY things, but it comes with the caveat that like this doesn't, like, some of these things aren't for everybody. Most of them are. We try to be pretty vague and broad strokes, but never hurts to seek help and say, hey, is this going to work for me with my condition? The last thing I'd want to do is see you get further hurt with this advice.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. So the first thing we kind of thought of when we're thinking about wellness and DIY is like DIY supplements, because you guys know how we feel about real food as supplements. So it's actually not that hard to come by your own supplements that way. Stuff that we do personally is pureed beef liver or even other organs to put into like ground beef for like tacos and stuff.
Yeah.
Or spaghetti works great. What else do you do with beef liver?
Anything that has ground beef, I add pureed beef liver. And this was something that was I had a huge hang up over for a long time. I've had liver sitting in my freezer for such a long time because I just didn't know what to do with it, because I didn't want to eat it straight. Taking raw liver shots is fine, but it isn't fun.
No.
And I was like,
and it's a whole to do. Like, it's a whole
yes,
thing.
yeah, it can be kind of complicated to do and just a process. And then you have to like store it, and it's just a thing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just puree some, because grinding it doesn't really work. I don't know if you've ever felt like a raw liver,
It's
but
bad. It just
it's a weird texture. And if you try to
squishes
grind it
and smears. It's weird.
Yes. So I just threw it in the blender and blended it until it was a puree. Poured it out on a sheet pan. I think I had parchment paper on the sheet pan. Poured it in that, froze it, and then cut it into like chunks, like squares. And then I just threw those in a freezer bag. And then every time I make something with ground beef, I pry one off of that very carefully and safely with a knife.
Oh my gosh.
I do not have a gigantic scar on my finger from where I stabbed myself a few weeks ago. And then I throw that in with the ground beef, and it you don't even notice it. I don't know if I put it on my stories a few months ago that I hid it in tacos, I think, and it was really funny because I was like, are they gonna know that it's in here? And one of them saw it on the stories, and they were like, they knew about it, and I was like, you little turd. But it really doesn't taste any different, and it was pretty easy to do.
Yeah. And if you're kind of hesitant about it, if it feels like it might not, like you're scared about it, pick things that are like big flavor things, like tacos, chili, things that are just like lots of flavor going on. You're never going to taste it.
A little bit. Like I started with one chunk, and then I was like, oh, I can't taste it. So I added a second chunk, and like I might even add a third at some point. Like, just keep increasing it until I taste it, and then
you gotta
back off.
Cook that frog slowly.
Yeah.
I have a somewhat hypothetical idea for what to do with liver or other beef organs that we are in the process of doing, but we have not fully executed yet. Our friend, her mom, has a freeze dryer, and we all contributed different organs from our freezer stashes to make our own beef organ blend. So she's going to take them and freeze dry them, and we're going to powder them. Everybody bought some capsules. I have an encapsulator, and we're all going to have like an encapsulation party.
Or you can just sprinkle that powder right on your food. Like, this is a big thing. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Pluck. It's like the organ seasoning blend. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So if you know someone with access to a freeze dryer, make your own Pluck.
Can you imagine, like, the salt, pepper? Oh, that's just organs.
Yeah. Ooh, maybe not try that.
Yeah. Don't put that on your eggs. You've heard me talk about this so many times, you're probably bored, but I make magnesium bicarb at home. Cheap, easy, quick, easy, cheap.
Quick.
Can't say enough. It's great. Huge fan. Also, you just heard Kayla talk about glycerite or tinctures or infusions. Find a good herbalist to follow their directions. You can do all kinds of fun herbal stuff at home.
Yes. Like, you think you're just drinking a cup of tea, but it's really medicine.
Yeah. Yes. I love working with herbs. They make me feel like the village wise woman, and it makes me so happy. Something that we've talked a lot about DIYing lately is meal plans. You can DIY your meal plan. You know what you like. You know what your family likes. It's not that hard to sit down and write down a list of food that you like to eat.
And there's lots of different ways to do this. Like, I believe Emily does it on pen and paper.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I did mine on Canva recently.
That's right. You did
I'm
yours
so
on Canva.
fancy.
You've done it on Post-it notes before.
I have. Last summer, I had a wall of Post-it notes, and
which
it worked
I think
awesome.
is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a dry erase board. I do mine on Google Sheets because I enjoy spreadsheets. I tell my husband all the time I'm a freak in the sheets, like the
He's
spreadsheets.
Super impressed. Yeah, there's lots of ways. I love that we were just talking about like making something your own, because this is definitely somewhere where like you can like check out. I have a way of doing it, and I still look at how other people do it, because I think it's
inspiration.
I am such a nerd for meal planning and recipes and stuff. So try one way. If that's not working for you, try another.
In our last episode, we talked a lot about cleaning product swaps, and part of that was DIY cleaning products. So in that episode, you'll hear us talk about things like citrus vinegar, homemade laundry detergent, dusting spray. So if you want to learn more about like some DIY cleaning products, you can reference that episode. It's episode 28, cleaning product swaps. And we'll pull some of the recipes and stuff from those show notes and put them in these show notes as well if you want them all in one spot.
Another thing that we really love to DIY are things like tallow, lard, butter, broth. Those are all like these pantry staples, fridge staples that they're not that hard to do at home. It can seem kind of intimidating to take like a hunk of fat and turn it into a rendered product, but it's honestly not hard. And there's lots of different methods. Stovetop, oven, crock pot, roaster. Yeah, there's so many methods. I would suggest you just look up how to do it and then just choose your own adventure on that one. Like there's not a
whatever works for you.
Yeah, there's really not a wrong way. Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing, is like sometimes people have a very large quantity that they need to render down, and other people have a much smaller quantity. So we'll put some of our favorite ways to do that in the show notes. Be on the lookout. I'm going to do a reel about how I make my own butter at home using my KitchenAid.
Yes.
I mean, I have a little bit of easier access because I have cows, so we bought a cream separator and we separate cream from our milk, and I use that to make butter. But you can do this with any cream that you find. Like, you can use this cream you find in the store, or you can find a farmer that has cows and you can hand skim it from the gallons that you get, or sometimes they will sell you raw cream.
Yes. Broth, same thing. It's so easy. Like, it's literally just like bones and water and whatever else you want to add just for funsies.
Add kitchen scraps,
you can, but you don't have to. If you want to make like bone broth hot chocolate, don't add things. It's just bones and water, and thyme. You can use same thing: Instant Pot, stovetop, crock pot, roaster. Kayla's really pulling for the roaster.
Well, I had to use my roaster recently.
And you're like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, why don't I do this all the time?
Because they're a pain to wash. That's why.
That's the big thing, yeah.
They don't fit in my sink, and I'm like,
I had to drag it down from the attic. We had bones from the deer that we processed. And I was like, I'm going to make bone broth because why not? Like, I have these bones.
Wait, so I need to know, did you can that? Did you can the broth too?
No, I thought about it, but I just froze it.
Okay, which brings me to my next point. Whatever you can freeze or store for later, like, don't be afraid to make a big batch of something and like keep it for later. At all times, pretty much, I have a huge stash of rendered tallow and lard. Let me make the point though that please label things. You will think you're gonna remember, but you won't. And I have a lot of mystery fat in my freezer right now that I pull out and go, what do we have today? Tallow or lard?
We shall see.
We shall see. Yes.
You can also DIY other foods like spaghetti sauce. Like
Yeah, totally.
Like we have this idea that we need to buy spaghetti sauce in the jar on the grocery store shelf, but you can buy the ingredients for spaghetti sauce and then keep it in your freezer.
Yeah.
Or just use it that week or whatever you want to do. But you can DIY different things that you're looking to like increase the quality of.
Yeah, totally. And if you rent out a freezer room, it's a good time to learn something like canning. Canning is fantastic. I bet your grandma did it. Your mom probably did it. And it's time for you to learn how to too. I water bath can because I'm a baby and I am scared of my pressure canner. But when you start pressure canning, I almost said pressure cannering.
I like that, actually.
I like it a lot. When you start doing that, like a whole new world of food prep and like money and time saving things like open up for you.
Yeah. So learning to can was something that I have done in the past couple years. I was super intimidated by it. My mom didn't do it very much. We did it from time to time, but not enough for me to really be familiar with it. And I think she was kind of intimidated by it herself, so she didn't let us help her very much. So like I just didn't know how to do it, and I was pretty intimidated. My mother-in-law does it a lot, but to get our schedules lined up and for both of us to have free time at the same time for me to learn from her was really difficult. So I learned a lot from YouTube. Our friend Ashlyn has done a lot of canning, and I asked her a lot of questions. I've asked questions just in the group chat like, hey, does anyone know how to do this? Because I think we have all canned now. And my favorite like water bath method for canning is I got a steam canner, and I really like using that because then I don't have a gigantic pot of water.
Oh, I have heard of these, and I'm fascinated.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to buy a canner anyway, like either a water bath canner or a steam canner. So I just went ahead and got the steam canner, and I seriously I had leftover cranberry sauce after Christmas, and I was like, well, I can't eat all of this cranberry sauce. I'm going to can it. And I just went to the basement, busted out my steam canner, and canned something in a couple hours. Like, it really makes the barrier to entry very low, and they're very simple to use. And then I got my pressure canner from Emily because
I'm a baby.
She was intimidated by it, which I mean, I get it. It was pretty intimidating, and it took me quite a few like batches to really dial in what I was doing. But I did it, and now I have a lot of canned venison on my shelf, and I actually brought some for lunch today.
What?
It's so good. Like, it is everything that you want in canned meat.
That's amazing. I don't know if I put a lot of thought into everything I wanted into canned meat, but I believe you. No, my secret plan is coming to fruition because I gave her my canner. She learned how to can, and now she can teach me how to can.
We can share the canner.
I love it. Mission accomplished.
We mentioned a lot of resources in this episode, so there's going to be a ton of links, a ton of recipes, a ton of resources in our Patreon show notes. So don't forget to go and join our free Patreon community and get in on all that goodness. And then while you're at it, leave a rating and review on your podcast player. Share this episode with friends and family and like-minded community. We're all looking for ways to DIY things, so let's get the word out. Hey there, friends. Are you feeling stuck or overwhelmed on your health journey? Maybe you've got questions about digestion, supplements, or just how to take that next small step toward feeling better. Well, I've got something exciting just for you. Office Hours. Every Tuesday, I'm hosting 2 live video chat sessions where we can connect one-on-one. This is your chance to ask questions, get guidance, or simply chat about how to make progress on your health journey. Whether it's understanding your supplements, tackling digestion challenges, or figuring out how food and lifestyle can support you, I'm here to help. Now, here's the fun part. While the links to join Office Hours are available to everybody, my email subscribers get so much more. By joining my email list, you'll not only stay updated on Office Hours reminders, but also get access to exclusive tips, resources, and inspiration to help you feel your best. Head over to the show notes for this episode and sign up for my email list today. I can't wait to see you during office hours and help you take your next steps with confidence and clarity. Let's do this together.
What's good this week, Kayla?
So this week I listened to a podcast episode on a podcast that I don't listen to very much, so I'm not endorsing this podcast by any stretch, but I have it. I'm subscribed to it, so that way I see episodes as they pop up, and just as I see things that I'm interested in, I listen to them. And this one had a title that intrigued me, and it doesn't really, I'll post the link to it in the show notes just that way you can go and listen to it if you really want to, but it's not really like groundbreaking. Let me be honest. I was looking for them to spill the tea on something, and so I was really hoping that they would, and they did. So that's really why I listened to it. I am not immune to wanting gossip. So this podcast episode was talking about allegations against some spiritual leaders in Christianity. And one of the hosts said this quote, and it really struck me, and I wanted to share it with everybody because I was like, this is such a good way to think about this when we are faced with people that we previously really enjoyed content from, and now we're grappling with how do we, carry on knowing that there are allegations against this person. And this host said, quote, "And I also think that this will cause everybody to fear, like you're going to see people want to avoid this kind of sin in the future, and they're going to see that there's a righteous God who exposes things that are in darkness." And that's exactly what he's doing in our days. This is signs of God's goodness. When he exposes what's in darkness, it means that there's a real God in heaven who does bring justice and does vindicate victims of abuse.
That's so good.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, because like so often we're just thinking like this is going to look bad for the Christians, like, can we really believe in a God who like this person believes in? And instead he like flipped it on his head and was like, no, actually when this kind of stuff is exposed, this means that God's trustworthy.
Wow. I got chills. That's really good.
It was really good.
Because just because we don't know it's happening doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes and amen to that, and I'll share the link to the full episode. Like, it wasn't like anything earth-shattering, I promise. I heard that and I was like, that was really helpful for me in my walk with God. So Emily, what about you?
Mine's less. I feel like I'm like kicking rocks when I tell you these things. Protein lemon custard.
Just as good. Still a sign of God's goodness.
I mean, truly. So this was a recipe I found on TikTok, and I'll link it and everything because I assume it's original from her. I made it a little bit differently than she did. This is not a true custard. Like, don't come at me. This is not. It tastes a little proteiny. I'm not gonna lie. But it's
fair enough.
Yes, but it's good, and it was a good breakfast. I've had it like 3 times now. It's with like one serving, it's like 4 eggs, so like it literally is breakfast. I was using the lemon collagen I was talking about the other day that I have so much of and don't know what to do with. That's how I found it. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So like a full serving of that, a little bit of sucanate, like some kind of sweetener. What else is in there? Some cream, which I might try swapping out for milk. We'll see. And then you bake it. You like blend it all up. You bake it. It's really easy to overcook. So like as long as you don't overcook it, it's like this delicious, creamy, amazing custard. If you overcook it, it tastes like an egg. But so I was so smart. I was like, I'm gonna meal prep this. This would be so good. I forgot about it. It overcooked. So I threw it in the food processor and beat the ever lovingness out of it. And it's like lemon pudding now.
Nice.
It's honestly like if you go in appropriately thinking like, oh, this is a protein recipe, you're going to be like, this is so good. If you go in thinking this is going to be like dessert custard, you're going to be like, this is the worst custard I've ever had. So like, it's delicious. Yeah. I mean, go in with the right mindset, I guess, but huge fan. I'm going to make it lots of times. It's hard to get in enough food the right kinds of foods, especially in the morning for me. So like this is going to be such a game changer as far as like, especially like having stuff ahead of time. That's really hard. So I don't know. Huge fan. Try it. Tell me what you think. Thank you for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast.
To learn more about my one-on-one packages, join my mailing list and follow me on Instagram at Kayla King Wellness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts. You don't want to miss an episode.
Follow us on Instagram at Good Enough Wellness Podcast to learn about upcoming episodes and to join our free Patreon to interact with the Good Enough community.
The Good Enough Wellness Podcast, because good enough can be good enough.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Me too.